Welcome to Everything But the Tip, the podcast that bucks the trend of the mainstream golf content being churned out by the masses. Presented by the co-founders of Smart Golf and Fitness, we're on a mission to guide golfers towards genuine improvement. No swing tips, no shortcuts, we're anti-instant gratification. Join us as we navigate the complexities of the game, offering insights on how to truly excel in golf by embracing the challenges and breaking free from the usual quick fix mentality.
All right, we're back at it again. And believe it or not, we have another guest.
We're getting popular.
Shoot, that's 2 weeks in a row.
People want to get on the show, bro. I'm telling you. We are gaining some traction.
You know, I'm pretty darn excited about tonight's guest, as he truly should be an inspiration for all of us. After dedicating countless amount of hours and honing his skills here at Smart Golf and Fitness, this individual made a pretty bold decision to leave a steady, gainfully employed position as an underwriter at CNA to chase his passion and go all in on his dream to pursue the career of becoming a professional golfer. So today we're going to explore his journey, the challenges he faced, and the triumphs he achieved along the way, where he currently stands today in his journey. But let's please welcome to the show a good friend of ours, an aspiring professional golfer, Machine Gun, aka Sean Kelley.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, here, we'd be happier if you spoke a little closer to the microphone.
Yeah. Hey, the people want to hear you, man. The people want to hear you.
Let's see it. Try one more time.
Good?
Oh,
Good.
I think that's pretty good.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I
I'm
like
new to
that.
this whole podcast thing, so
All right,
bear
well,
with
maybe
me
I'll
here.
turn
All
that
good.
up a little bit. Okay, perfect. All right, well, hey, let's kick things off. Let's just start from the beginning. And you can kind of decide where you want to start in the timeline, but let's give the audience a little bit of insight to your background and ultimately how your story begun here at Smart Golf and Fitness.
Yeah. Gosh, where to start? I mean, I've been playing golf since I was 4 years old, and started playing competitively when I was 12, 13, 14 years old in IJGA events, Plantation Junior Golf Tour events, all that good stuff. Played high school, JV freshman year, varsity.
Where
sophomore,
at?
Junior and senior year in Nequa Valley.
Oh, yeah. Go Wildcats.
Yeah. Shout out Naperville.
There we go. To the Nape.
So I did that, and after I progressed through high school, I wasn't really recruited by any schools, just because I didn't really have the results that I was looking for, or that I needed to, go play D1 golf at the time. So I ended up taking a visit to a small school in Pella, Iowa called Central College, and I went there, met with the coach. First thing he said was, well, we don't really cut anybody from the golf team, so that was off to a good start. And then we did a tour, and it was, more or less just spinning in a circle. And beautiful campus, but it was just very small. And coming from Nequa, being 4,000 students, it was just too small for my taste at the time, and wasn't super good at golf.
Yeah, I mean, what
in
kind of
my
player were
eyes.
you at that point? What kind of scores were you shooting?
Yeah, so I was, at my best, I was scratch, but I hovered around a 1, 2, 3. Missed going to state senior year by a shot. That's a whole nother story. Diagnosed with mono 2 weeks before. And anyways, I digress. But yeah, so I decided to forego that, and I told myself if I don't play golf in college, I'm going to go to Illinois State. So I ended up going to Illinois State and told myself that I would try and walk on there. Again, knowing the competition of Division I golfers, I told myself I would just try and walk on. So I went and tried to walk on. Coach said thanks, but no thanks. And, that was kind of that. So I had my fun in college, and then landed a really good job out of school at a corporate insurance company, called CNA Financial, and started that right out of school. And about a year in, I realized, man, I'm bored as hell, because I would, I'd get to the office 6:30, 7 o'clock every morning, and I'd leave 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And then I'd get home and I'd sit around for 2 hours doing nothing. And I was just like, I gotta figure out something to do. And at the time, I had been going to the driving range a lot over at Diversity, because I was living downtown over in Old Town. And I actually started to put up some good scores. I was shooting right around even, a couple scores under par. And
Were you playing in any amateur competitive events at this point?
yeah, so let's see, I was 22. Actually, no, I wasn't. I didn't start doing those till a couple years out of college, when I got back into playing all the CDGA events, and qualified for the Illinois Open twice. And so at this point in time, I wasn't playing competitively, but I started to play some good golf, and that kind of got the gears turning. And said, you know what, I should probably go take some lessons somewhere, because up until this point, I had never taken any lessons before. It was, my dad and I would go to the golf course, and, he was super grateful for this, that he never pushed me and instructed me per se. He taught me the morals of the game, honesty, integrity, things like that. But there really wasn't much instruction from him, and he allowed me to find my passion for the golf game, or for the game of golf rather, rather than him forcing it on me, if that makes sense, which is super important, especially in my opinion, in young junior golfers, right? You got to let them find their love for the game. So fast forward to about a year into work, and I started looking around in the area trying to find a place where I could, practice my game in the winter, and take lessons, and try and progress, right? Progression is happiness, right? If you're progressing at something, you're going to have a...
I thought perfection was practice or happiness.
No such thing as perfect in golf. We know that.
Are we not happy?
Did no, you remember the sign that was in our gym? It said "Search for progress, not perfection." I was just trying to, make a joke at 90% of the people that walk in the door here that kind of forget that.
Yeah. So I checked out East Bank Club. I thought about Golf Tech, which is more mainstream. And my thing with Golf Tech is, I just didn't want to go and buy a package and then, kind of be on my own after that, right? I wanted to get with somebody, build a relationship with someone, and have more of a long-term commitment for myself, right? And I happened to stumble across you guys here at Smart Golf, and the second I walked into the facility, I was like, yeah, this is the real deal. This is probably what I'm going to do, right? So I went through the assessment.
So would you find us on Google?
Man, I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
At a coffee shop, did you run into one of our employees? Did you see the PXG van? There's a lot of different stories about how people found us. Some of them became clients, some of them became employees, some of them became a combination of both.
Yeah.
But you were the Google guy? You found us on the Google?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what? Now that I think about it, I think I went to a golf fitness place, and it wasn't, I don't remember the name of it. Velocity comes to mind for some reason, but...
We're not going to give
Never
them a
heard of
shout
them.
out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Either way, I ended up finding you guys, and...
By a stroke of fate, you found Smart Golf
Yeah.
and Fitness.
And this was the OG location, right? This
It was, yeah. Yeah, right down the street.
1315 West Willow,
Yep.
right across from the Home Depot.
Yep. So I went through the assessment, and what was mind-blowing to me was the fitness side of it coupled with the golf aspect, right? And, the first 30 minutes I was there, I was with Will, if you guys remember Will.
Yeah, Will left to go on like a mission trip, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Also got his car stolen one time. All sorts of weird stuff at that old place.
So I went through the assessment with Will and then with you, Tommy, and I specifically remember this because I didn't have a car when I was living down here. I called my dad on the way home and I was like, I really want to do this. At the time I just graduated, I just bought my condo that's over in Old Town. So I was a little bit strapped for cash, and he was like, well, think of it this way. If you want to go pursue something that you want to do, view it as an investment in yourself, right? To make yourself better at something, progress at something that will, in the end, make you happy. And that was kind of the 100%, okay, I'm doing this.
So in the beginning, when you had first discovered us and decided to join our program, it was not at that point in time where you were going to pursue a career professionally. This was, or had you made that decision at that point, or was it kind of like, hey, I want to go get a little bit better at golf, see where it takes me? You hadn't made a definitive decision to pursue it at the highest level right then and there, correct?
That thought hadn't even crossed my mind.
Right.
Not even remotely in my mind. It was because I was, working the daily grind and getting home and being like, I need to go find something that I like to do when I'm finished working my day job. So I ended up signing up for a 3-month program, and I don't want to say instant results because it most certainly wasn't. There was a lot of growing pains, when you're learning new movements and patterns.
Well, you don't have to be humble. You can just say, I'm a stellar athlete, so I had phenomenal instruction, I had phenomenal fitness, and I saw instant results.
Yeah.
Well, and he could also brag that he was, remembering what his pattern had looked like when he had first started with us. The fact that he had gotten to the level of a play that he had already achieved was a testament to his athletic skills. I think that was the first swing I'd ever seen where a guy had scrapes on his left knee at impact.
To this day, they're still kind of there.
If you can picture this, if you're listening, he had a severe collapse of the lead leg, and that was kind of a little joke we made.
So yeah, I started the program, and within about a month, I went from, I was probably a 2 or a 3 at the time. I went to scratch and stayed there for an entire season, and then moved to a +1 as I continued taking lessons, and then moved.
Who are you working with at Smart Golf?
Well, there was this one guy. He was a little bit strange to me. His name was Joe Sharon. That was. It's actually pretty interesting because when Will left,
Been called worse.
I walked over to Joe as soon as I found out Will was leaving, and I said, Joe, I want to work with you. And he was like, I don't know. No, he welcomed me with open arms and developed my skills and gave me the foundation to get to the point where I was like, okay, there's something here that I need to explore, right? And so that's when the idea came to me of thinking about going and playing professionally. Kept working out at Smart Golf with Tommy and working with Joe, and 2-3 years down the road, I'm 26 at the time.
So yeah, 2-3 years down the road, and you had been seeing Tommy and I 1 hour a week with me, 1 hour a week with Tommy, and not to mention, how many days a week were you at the facility?
6 to 7, right?
7.
So you were all in, you were grinding. It wasn't just a snap of the finger 2-3 years. It was, even at that point you had kind of really gone all in as far as allocating all of the time that you had available. You were young, single professional for the most part, right? So what else is there to do with your time?
Yeah, right.
But anyway, so 2 or 3 years down the road, kind of what's the state of the union? You had gotten to a +3, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. At that point, your job was redundant,
Yeah, I was more or less going through the motions at that point. I'd pretty much reached the highest position I could get to without moving into a management role. And I started to question it. I started to question, if a management opportunity opens up, do I even want that? What does that job look like? And go ahead.
I'm good.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Sorry. Yeah.
So your job was boring as hell. Got it.
Yeah.
All
more
you
or
could think
less.
about, all you were doing was breathing, eating, sleeping, golf.
Yeah.
And smart golf and fitness.
Yeah, basically. And the worst was the summer months until I found smart golf. Then the winter months, it was better, right? Because I had a place to go. But sitting in the office, looking outside, and it's 75, 80 degrees out, and I'm sitting behind a desk and essentially chained to the desk till 5 o'clock per se. So this is when the gears started turning, like, how am I going to do this, right? How am I going to leave a job where I'm doing very well at 27 years old? I've got a condo in Old Town. How am I going to pay for that? A lot of thoughts crossed my mind from a financial perspective of how do I set myself up to give myself an opportunity to give it a go, right? And try. And so I started thinking about it, and of course talked to my parents, and they were not surprising, but surprisingly, they were fully supportive pretty much right out the gate. They said, if this is something that you really want to do, then do it, right? And I didn't just go to them and say, hey, I'm going to quit my job and go try and play professional golf, right? I laid out a plan. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's, financially where I'm at, and yada, yada, yada. So
that's one thing I think that, maybe the general public and most golfers know, but not only does golf have a steep learning curve, it also has a pretty aggressive barrier to entry if you want to try and play on a professional level. So not only do you have to have the talent or have, a very, very good game, but it's an expensive sport, from the equipment to the tournament entry fees to the travel, things like that. Even the professionals right now, the guys that don't have all the endorsements and stuff like that, if they don't play well on Thursday and Friday, they could run the risk of losing money participating in that tournament when it comes down to paying their caddy and their travel and their food and stuff like that. So, this is a huge decision, again, both, personally and professionally, and it takes a lot of thought and a lot of planning if you don't have a huge nest egg or, a syndicate behind you of people that have put some money together and have seen you play and are going to, spot you for a couple of years, so to speak, to let you do it. But, ultimately, we've worked with some people in the past, and you can't pursue a professional sport, let alone golf, trying to work part-time or trying to, work a full-time job and allocate those, extra hours you have. You don't have the energy. Right. You just can't compete with the guys that are doing it 7 days a week, like a full-time job, 8 to 10 hours a day. So.
Yeah, no, and I don't think this is a situation where Sean was extremely ignorant going into this about what this decision entailed. I look at us as entrepreneurs, sometimes ignorance is bliss, but us taking a leap of faith when we decided to go out on our own and start our own business, there's a lot of parallels to doing that, right? And there's a lot of people that go through life that, maybe later down the line are in a situation where they're not necessarily struggling with regret, but maybe, and that's where you and I, it's one of those decisions where it's like, hey, I would rather go out and fail, right, than be down the line in life wondering what if. I think that would be real. That'd be a lot harder for me to swallow. And so, and I just, I think it's great that you pointed that out, Tommy, because, being around us, we tried to educate you as much as we possibly could to let you know how daunting of a objective, task, goal that lied in front of you without also shattering your dreams.
For sure.
Right? We wanted to encourage you along the way. But as I stated, when you had gotten to that point where you were playing some really high level golf, we knew you had a lot further to go. But I told you, I go, I'm supportive of this because I know you're not happy at your current position. So I always say, what's a bigger risk, people? Staying at your 9 to 5 the rest of your life, right? Or going out taking a leap of faith, going out and pursuing what you're truly passionate about with the risk of failing, right? But then also going down, as I pointed out, later in life, knowing like, hey, I don't have to wonder what if anymore.
Yeah.
But I said, I go, if you pursue this, I go, no matter what, something good is going to come from this. No matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, as we get further through the story and journey, like our listeners are going to find out that that was 100% true. But anyway, back to where you're at. You're telling your parents. They were supportive. And let's
You
pick
got
up
a plan in place.
Yep.
Yeah, so I had the plan in place, and you know, at that point it was more a waiting game, right? To continue to save and save and save and save, so that when the time came and I couldn't take the 9 to 5 anymore, right? To pull the plug on that, right? And my initial goal was 2019 to leave the corporate world and pursue this. And then COVID hit. And so I was like, okay, well, can't play any tournaments.
I don't have to go to the office.
I don't have to go to the office. I'm working from home. And since I was spending every day with Tommy and Joe anyways.
Like literally, I was very thankful because at that point he was giving me a ride to work every now and then.
So I held off, and then I ultimately ended up quitting that corporate job in December of 2020 and went all in on this. And
Can you share what maybe some of your biggest fears were at the time, biggest concerns or uncertainties, and how you were kind of navigating them?
that's a good question.
I mean, clearly you had the best team in place, so that was one thing you didn't have to worry about. But
That honestly made it a lot easier because I knew I had, you know, the best facility to work at, the best coaches to work with, the best fitness instructors to work with between you two guys. I had the support of my family, right? And so the fears, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say they were fears, but it was more, if it doesn't happen, right? Okay, I tried. You know, I can live with that, right? What I couldn't live with was continuing to work that job, and then I'm, 40, 45 years old, still working that job, and looking back to Joe's point, what he said earlier, and saying, what if I did give it a try, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say I was afraid, right? I was just more content with making the decision and knowing that, okay, if you're going to do this, you need to bust your ass and work hard every day because this is now your job, right?
there were no haters? Come on, there's got to be a hater out there. You got to call out a hater.
Well,
there had to be some haters out there.
I'm sure there was, but, for me, I made the decision for me, right? And whatever anybody else said, it didn't matter to me.
I love that. Haters going to hate, so just
Yeah,
brush them off, baby.
For me, it was just more, if people want to hate on it, fine. Go ahead. Do I have the talent to get there? Not right now, right? But do I believe in myself, and do I believe that I have the ability to get there? I do. If somebody else wants to tell me different, fine, go ahead. But at the end of the day, the only person's opinion that matters when you go towards really anything in life, right? In my particular case, it was, trying to work towards playing professionally, is your own, right? There's, it makes no difference what anybody else thinks so long as you're content, as I said earlier, with the decision you're making, and you're willing to work hard for it. So
can you think back, was there a difference when you walked into the facility that first time
Oh,
that you had
gosh.
pulled the plug versus all of the, previous hundreds of times or perhaps even thousands at that point, because it was a couple years into,
For sure.
you signed up for that first initial 3 months. Shortly into that 3 months, you decided, oh, this is going to be a little longer process, but this is totally worth it, and this is the place I want to be. So, yeah, you've walked into the facility thousands of times prior. What did it feel like when you walked in that first time after pulling the plug and be like, all right, this is my job now?
Gosh, my initial reaction was Tinkerbell. I feel like light on my feet, right? Yet at the same time...
New nickname.
Tink. Yet at the same time, a little bit of a weight on my shoulders, right? Knowing the process that I'm going to have to go through and knowing the difficulty and trials and tribulations that I'm going to have to go through to make these changes in my golf swing.
Could you say an increase in pressure?
1,000%. Yeah, there's no question about it, right? Because, now, like I said earlier, this is your job, right? And if you want this to be your job and have that job pay dividends, you need to perform, right? Like Tommy said, if, a Corn Ferry Tour guy or a PGA Tour guy plays, Thursday, Friday, misses the cut, well, they're not making any money.
So obviously there's the financial pressure. Can you say whether or not you had any pressure from an ego standpoint with, the idea, hey, here I am, I quit my job to pursue professional golf. If I don't come close or if I don't achieve this, what are people going to think about me, right? I know it's easy to say, like, people's opinions are none of my business. I don't
Right.
care, but was there any of that?
No, honestly, there wasn't. For me, it wasn't about ego or anything like that. It was more for me, right? And
Self-fulfillment.
Self-fulfillment, 100%. And that's, again, back to that progress equals happiness, in my opinion. I think the pressure and that weight on my shoulders was not wanting to let myself down, right? Wanting to succeed almost too much, right? And in the game of golf, right, it's, you go out and say you make 2 doubles in a row, then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm not playing well, so who cares? And then all of a sudden you start playing well. Well, why, right?
So obviously success is relative.
For sure.
What's your current definition of success right now?
Currently, right now, I would say success is going towards something that you want to do, and you get better in doing that.
So specifically to your golf game right now, what is success?
Progress, right? I mean, there's nothing better than, in my opinion, seeing someone else or seeing yourself progress at something and get better at something. I mean, that's really the only way that I can put it is success is not, in my opinion, it's not how much money you make at the end of the day. It's not, how many tournaments you win, golf tournaments. It's not how many championships you won. It's where do you feel like you're getting better at something and progressing, right? Whether it's leading you to a different path, whether it's leading you to, that championship that you want to win, whether that's leading you to the golf tournament you want to win, or professional golf in this particular scenario.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. I was just going to say we talked about this in earlier episodes. We tend to quote him a decent amount, but James Clear, he always said, for us, success isn't a finish line to be crossed, right? It's a lifestyle to be lived. And he's an author of the book Atomic Habits, and he's talking, in other words, not too dissimilar to how you're framing it, but talking about the process. Little wins, habits, systems that are in place that when done consistently and accordingly, like that should lead to the happiness. That's the process, enjoying the journey along the way. So yeah, we're definitely on the same page with that.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was just curious if there was any, like, you know, memorable moments or kind of like a breakthrough during your journey that kind of solidified your decision to go pro, kind of reinforced it, and like, all right, I made the right decision.
Yeah.
You had anything that you can
Good or
highlight
bad,
there?
or wrong
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah, no, I would say, and I can't remember the years, but I qualified for the Illinois Open 2 years in a row. You know, so as we know, the Illinois Open's probably one of, if not the biggest tournament in Illinois.
Which is a lot more challenging to qualify these days.
For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, you've got to shoot par or better to
Yeah,
qualify.
For sure, for sure. And then I'd say about a year after I quit the corporate job, I finished medalist at one of the CDGA qualifiers. I think I shot 67 or 68 or something like that. And quite frankly, I didn't have my A game. I think I hit 3 fairways that day. But I scored, right? I was able to put a number on the board without having my A game, right? And you know, as Tiger put it, you know, never really had my A game before, but this is pretty dang close to it, right? You never really have that A game. So for me to be able to put together a score and have that be the best score of the day, it was very encouraging and a success, right? That solidified the decision that I made and increased that progress towards that goal.
So you've got like a honeymoon period, right? You pulled the plug, you know, you've got some highlights here and stuff like that. Do you recall, you know, at any point, like how far into the journey, like did things start to get a little bit more difficult perhaps? Was it harder to stay motivated after a certain period of time, you know?
I mean, it's certainly got more difficult, right? Because
Let me add to that.
Yeah, go
There
for
was
it.
a period of time, correct me if I'm wrong, where golf wasn't as fun as it used to be for you. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah, and I think that goes back to the pressure that I was more putting on myself, not wanting to let myself down. And yeah, it was tough to go out onto the golf course and play. You know, obviously you don't want to let down other people, but you know, having that thought in your brain of letting yourself down, that's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah, we always talk about expectations, right? You know, shit, I never really pursued becoming a professional golfer, but just like you, I'm not done trying to get better. I still have goals. I still want to become the best version of myself. I hold myself to a high standard, just like I do all of my students. And, you know, you hear about it all the time. You get, you know, fellow pros in the industry that they throw the clubs up. Like they hang them up. They don't play anymore because, you know, it all comes down to expectations. Once you've played at a certain level for so long, or you know what you're fully capable of, and you start stacking rounds up back after back, like not meeting those expectations, it's not very fun.
Yeah.
You know, and it gets to a point where, you know, some guys just accept the fact that they're not going to play at that level, and rather than just accepting, hey, I'm just going to play to the ability that I can at this point, they hang them up. So totally can sympathize with that, and I know you were going through that. I'm curious where you're at with it today. I think there was an opportunity for some introspection, some self-reflection, that you recognize that. You know, I'm guilty of that. Everyone knows that. I'm still working on it. Sometimes I'm not the most fun guy to play with in the world, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, a lot of times it was me, you know, taking a look in the mirror and saying, what can I do different, right? To alleviate that pressure on my shoulders. And I think that's the biggest challenge with professional golf and professional athletes for that matter, right? Is I would imagine that they have a similar mindset and with the amount of pressure that they put on themselves to be able to get past that, right? And for me, it was really difficult, and still to this day I work on it. I still put a lot of pressure on myself in tournaments, and
Can you share with the listeners anything that has helped or that, you have put into practice that has helping you progress through this?
yeah. So what I would say is that I guess it's twofold, right? One would be on course, the second would be off course. The on course piece is cliche, but whatever happened on your last shot, you have to let it go. It's simple as that. It's difficult. Everybody knows it, right? But it's simple as that. Whatever happened on that last shot, it doesn't matter. So what's helped me is, regardless of where my last shot went or where it finished, stepping up to that next shot and saying, okay, how do I hit this shot to the best of my ability, and move forward from there. In addition to that, you make a bogey, you move on from it, right? At the same token, right, you make a birdie, people get all juiced up, right? You get the adrenaline flowing and all that stuff. That's in the past, right? You've got to move forward, whether it's a good hole or a bad hole, and concentrate on the shot that's in front of you.
I remember when I was caddying for you, you were going down a dark hole early in that round. You remember that over at Naperbrook?
Yeah.
A couple of bad breaks there and a couple of bad holes, and
Yeah.
just felt like you're kind of reeling a little bit there and, starting to chase versus kind of staying steady and trying to stick with the plan that you had in place to attack the golf course. And I remember we went to the one hole right around the road there. What is that, like?
Hole 7.
Hole 7?
Hole 7.
It's like, dude,
6 iron.
stop this. Let's just hit the shot you know how to hit, and let's see if we can make some numbers on the way in, and hit that 6 iron pure as PAF, and you made eagle on that hole, and that turned it around for us a little bit, and things started to spiral in a positive manner. But I think we stayed a little more like even keel after
sure.
that, and
For
things
sure.
didn't necessarily fall completely the way we wanted, but I think that was a little turning point there, perhaps.
For sure, 100%. Which is interesting that you bring up the caddy piece of it, right? Because, when I quit my corporate job, I knew I needed to have some sort of supplemental income. So I started caddying out at Butler National through a member who I connected with here at Smart Golf. And caddying, let me tell you, it's a heck of a lot easier than playing golf. It's very interesting for me because, I view the game totally different when I'm caddying versus when I'm playing. So that's kind of my end goal, is to figure out how do I take that caddy mentality and transition that over to my golf game. I'll get back to you guys when I figure that one out.
Cool.
I think, you should shed some light. You had a unique opportunity as a caddy to caddy for someone playing at the highest level. I don't know if you want to speak to that, and where you weren't necessarily out there and playing at the highest level, but you were out there witnessing the highest level as close as you can. And I'm just curious if you wanted to talk about that, maybe mention who the player was, up to you,
Sure.
but just kind of share what kind of influence or impact that had, good or, hopefully I don't know how it would be bad, but what kind of influence that had on you as a player.
I think getting to see behind the curtain, that's huge. So yeah, I'd love to hear
For
about
sure.
that.
Like I said, I started caddying out at Butler when I quit my corporate job, and ended up connecting with one of the members out there who plays on the Corn Ferry Tour. And I found out that he and his caddy had split, and I slid into his DMs, and because whenever he was in town, he'd come out and play at practice, and whenever he played, they would put me on his bag to caddy for him. And so I slid into his DMs, and I just said, hey, if you need a guy to fill in a week or whatever, be happy to help you. And he just responded, well, I was looking for more of a full-time guy. At that point, this was last year.
So how many, months what duration of time were you pursuing a professional career? How much time had passed since you quit your job?
2020, so 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was 24/7, 365 for 3 years, more or less. I was driving Tommy to work every day, pick him up at 5:30, home by 9:30.
He was wearing a lot of different hats. He turned in his corporate hat, and he didn't realize he was going to carry like 6 hats.
Yeah.
Well, you laugh, but unfortunately, that's all but too common because, as you had stated earlier, for the guys pursuing a career as a professional golfer, for the ones that you don't really recognize their name, they're not household names. It is not a glamorous lifestyle, right? Unless you have some, extenuating circumstances where your parents were well off, or you had a rich uncle, or someone that was willing to sponsor you. Like it's one of those sports where you have to pay to play. And, from the travel and the living expenses, it's really, really tough. So unfortunately, that ability to go all in, 24/7, 365, and have it only be time allocated to pursuing your game, it's really, really, really tough. So a lot of players are out there doing exactly what you did, which are caddying to supplement some of their income, and then taking the time they do have available to practice and hone in their skills.
Yeah.
So share with us, what were your thoughts when you were out there on the Corn Ferry Tour? What did you witness? What did that do to your mindset? And
So I think for me it was, I don't want to say I wasn't wowed, right? Because those guys are really, really good. Looking back on it, what wows me is day in, day out, week in, week out. And that's the biggest piece to the puzzle, right? Is that consistency that they have. And that's kind of what made me change courses a little bit to get to where I'm at now. Still pursuing golf at a high level. Still working towards getting better and progressing my game. But it wasn't hard to see, but it was just like, man, that's crazy, right? So
They just don't have those crazy misses very often.
yeah, the misses are very small, the dispersion is very small, and then to cap it all off, when they do have those misses, they're missing in the right spot, and their short games are incredible, and if they hit a bad chip, they're 15 feet, and we all know the percentages of making 15 footers. I saw more 15 footers going for par than the percentages would say, right? It's just crazy the level of consistency that these guys have, right? So to give you an example, right? If I play my absolute best round, right, I shoot, call it 5 under, 67, 66, somewhere in there. You put someone like, a middle of the road guy. They play okay. They're shooting 68, 69, right? So I play my absolute best round, and I lose. I beat him by 2, okay? Now we go 4 days of it, right? The percent chance that I shoot my best round again, 66, 67, is...
Regression to the mean.
Yeah, 100%. But you can see where I'm going with it, right? The gap just continues to grow, right? So if you use numbers, for example, right? You'd say I'm a +2, right? And someone's a +6, okay? Okay, 1 round, I lose to him by 4 shots.
Times it by 4.
Right. Yeah. Times by 4, I lose by 16, I'm not even close, right? So that gets to the point of that consistency for 1 week, right? Now do that 6 weeks in a row, which all these guys on the Corn Ferry Tour are doing, because top 30 get cards, right? If you're outside the top 60 now, you have to go back to first stage in Q school. If you're not in that top 30, you don't have the luxury of choosing your schedule. You go play every week you have an opportunity to, whether your body wants to or not, because you don't know when that next opportunity is going to come, right? So that was my biggest aha moment, call it, to change course for me. And I was okay with that, right? And that was the biggest piece for me, right? Is 2 years ago, if you asked me that, no chance would I have been okay with that, right? But to be given the opportunity to go caddy out at Butler, meet a Korn Ferry professional, go spend 6 months with him traveling. I mean, the first 4 events we did, I was gone January 5th to February 12th, right? Living out of a suitcase. And, my guy had been on the tour for a while, so he knew a lot of the stops, the courses.
Curious, is he's still pursuing? Is he still out there?
Yeah.
Is he doing well?
Yeah, he's doing well. He's working through it. He's got a good mindset now, and not to say he didn't before, but he'll be back. I have no doubts.
Curious, do you think he's net positive financially?
That I don't know. We didn't really get into the financials very much outside of me, but if you look at what it costs for a touring professional, if they really want to do it the correct way, I mean, you're talking 100 to 150 grand a year.
Just as expenses to get through the season.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So you miss a cut Thursday, Friday. Well, you're not netting any money there.
All right, so we have our aha moment. You had an did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to get back to him.
Okay.
It's all about him.
Yep, so you had your aha moment, and, for better or worse, you kind of acknowledged, okay, well, this initial intent, this initial objective was to pursue becoming a professional golfer. It sounds to me like there might have been some acceptance to say, okay, well, maybe that's not a reality for me,
Yeah.
but here I am, caddy at Butler.
Yeah.
Let's pick up right there.
Well, actually, real quick, one other piece that I wanted to add that was gave me a little bit more of a peace of mind in making the decision that I ultimately made, and that was having those 6 months on the road. That lifestyle is no joke, right? When they say it's a grind, it's a beep grind, So when I finished up 6 months in, it was looking back on it, forget about the skills. Can I get the skills there? Forget about all that. Do I want that lifestyle, right? I want to have a family someday. I want to have kids, if I'm fortunate enough to do so. Guess when the golf season is? All summer. I'm going to miss my kid's first baseball game. I'm going to miss my kid's first soccer game, right? That was something to me that was not as important as pursuing that, end goal per se. Anyways, that was what I wanted to add to that.
Looking back on that part of the journey, those chapters, is there anything you would have done differently?
From a plan perspective, no. I think I set myself up well. Looking back on it, I would try to go a little easier on myself. I think I was going through a period in my life where it was a challenging time. I was a little bit lost, which, added quitting the corporate job and adding that additional pressure. I was really hard on myself. And I think a lot of people are. I don't, mean to just say me, right? But you can't grow and learn when you're constantly battling yourself, right? And being negative towards yourself and getting down on yourself. And it's hard to battle, right? There's a lot of people out there who battle it every day. I still battle it, right? So looking back on it, give yourself a little grace, right? You're going to make mistakes. Look at the mistakes as opportunities, rather than failures, right?
So how has this journey impacted you personally beyond just the golf skills aspect of it?
I'm more happy, for sure. Yeah, it was, that first day walking in here after I quit, Tinkerbell, right? Granted, I kind of eased my way into it with COVID because quite frankly, it really wasn't working. No, it made me more in tune with my emotions because I saw the very darkest sides of my own emotions, right? So to recognize that and be able to build on that and know when you're being negative to yourself or you're doing something that's not making you feel good, right? That's changed drastically for me just from the start of the journey to as I sit here with you guys today. But yeah.
Can you think about what you might be most grateful for?
You guys?
Well, thank you for that. That's not necessarily why we put the
Wasn't
question
what
in there.
I was trying to tee it up as, but
it works out well.
That really wasn't meant to be a joke.
Yeah.
And being very sincere, you guys took me in and, at first it was, a client relationship, right? And it developed into, a deep friendship, right? We spent basically every day with each other for a number of years. But the biggest thing for me is, you guys saw me at my darkest, right? And you guys were always there. So that's what I'm most grateful for. You too, D. Rose.
All right, fast forward, State of the Union. Where did Sean Kelley end up? Where are we at today?
Yeah, so...
I didn't see it at the British last week, so.
Yeah, I missed open qualifying by one.
Okay.
No, just kidding. I'm not that good. I'm trying to be good. I'm progressing, so I'm getting happier.
There you go.
So after I did the Corn Ferry gig for 6 months, I came back. I don't want to say I was discouraged. I felt like I had clarity, right? And so again, those wheels started turning, similar to when I was making the progression to quitting that corporate job. And I ultimately decided that, maybe a job in the golf industry is something for me, right? I always say if, you follow your passion, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And now I wake up every day and I get to go to work. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy chatting with our membership, and I enjoy putting on the events, and I enjoy being around my coworkers there. So I ultimately decided to start the PGM program through the PGA of America in November of last year. And at that same time, I had started working in the golf shop a couple days a week at Butler National, where I was caddying at. And once I started the PGM program, the director of golf hired me as a second assistant professional, and I'm working through the schoolwork now. I'm just about done with level 2, so I'm moving through it pretty quickly, and I'm just really happy. Oh, and I have a beautiful lady in my life too, so that helps.
Well, and I think
It's a lady.
what's really cool, you want to give her a shout out?
Yeah, shout out Molly, I love you.
I was going to say what's really cool, in which I know I see your name on the leaderboard because you're participating in them. But what's cool about being a PGA pro, you're not a tour pro,
Right.
but there's a lot of opportunity to play competitive golf. Mm-hmm. You're not getting $1 million check if you win,
Right. Right.
But you can, if you're a good player, there's some decent financial incentive if you have a super successful season. So,
sure.
And a little bit less pressure, I would hope, especially with all the pressure that you were able to play. I would say, through that pursuit and those experiences and that journey, that you got to feel pretty pretty solid, or at least there's been a lot of growth from a mental standpoint teeing it up in those tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're certainly getting there, and I think that was the ultimate decision maker for me in going down this path, getting my Class A and getting the second assistant professional job at Butler, was the fact that I'll still be able to play a full competitive schedule. I'm still playing against really high level golfers, and quite frankly, the goal is still the same. Right? It's just shifted a little bit. And what I mean by that is as a PGA professional, there's certain avenues that can get you to that highest level, right? Qualify for the PBC, which is the PGA Professionals Championship, finish top 20 in that, PGA Championship, right? So that was the, push over the edge to say, well, hold on a second here. You're not giving up, because, as my mind thought, well, you're giving up on it. No, hang on a second here. You didn't give up on it, right? It's a changing course, right? And to your point earlier, and you said this to me a year, maybe less than that, after I quit my corporate job, something good is going to come out of this. And, through all of it, it got me to where I'm at today. And, is that the something good? Maybe.
Hopefully,
sounds pretty great to me.
Certainly better than sitting in a chair in that CNA building right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But yeah,
I mean, let's face it. I went to Ferris State University PGM program 4.5 years. To land an assistant pro job at Butler, coming out of school, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. So, bravo, pat on your back. You should be very grateful for that and very appreciative for that opportunity, because that place is no joke.
Yeah.
And after learning a little bit more about your day to day and seeing that, it sounds like the director of golf knows what he's doing there, to where you're not working one of those typical stereotypical jobs where you're in there 70 hours a week. Sounds like you get 2 days off. You're working on average 40 to 50 hours a week, obviously more for tournaments, but you get to play a ton of golf at arguably one of the best golf courses in the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
But I think you should be proud as well, because they're not just handing those things out. So
I left out the word proud.
The hard work, dedication that you had put in your original pursuit spilled over into your love and passion for the opportunity that they gave you, and then ultimately see you as a good asset to help that that place continue to thrive and grow and just have a good professional staff there. So perfect fit.
Now, I'm not shy about this, and nor will I not continue to be, but we want Sean here at Smart Golf and
Yes.
Fitness Instruction. And every time I see him, I say, hey, when are you going to start? When are you joining the team?
Yeah, I'm mad at the membership. I'm mad at your colleagues.
Because I'm like, I know you'll be a phenomenal coach. I know what knowledge you have, and your personality is amazing. So, it's a fact that you have all of the experience. And it doesn't mean you can't coach at Butler. You should. Sure. You should try to coach as much as you can there. You're going to be an excellent coach, and I'm sure you're already giving lessons. You're already an excellent coach. But anyway, just had to throw that out there. The opportunity is still available. Just
Duly noted. Thank you. I still have to pinch myself, right? Because it's, because of you guys where I'm at, right? I ended up hooking up with Nicky, and he connected me with the caddy master at Butler, and then they needed extra help in the shop when the interns left, and then one thing led to another, but that doesn't happen without you guys, right? And that's the culture that's built here, right? It's not just a golf coach, it's not just a fitness coach at Smart, right? It's a bond that you're building, and quite honestly, that's how you're going to get better, right? You build a bond with your coach, because then they're not going to sugarcoat anything, right? You could do a bad rep in a lesson, they're going to let you know, bad rep. I just had a 25, 30-minute lesson with Joe where we were looking at a couple things. Right back to where we started, right?
Picked up where you left off.
You look so silly doing your slow motion swings. Still can't do it, right? But that's the culture that's here, right? And in my opinion, right, that's how you're going to get better, right? You build a team around you, whether you're a 20 handicap or whether you're a plus 10 handicap, right? You still need a good support team around you to get better at this silly game we play.
Sure, and we, pride ourselves on building a good community here, so
For sure.
that community helped, kind of solidify and help, kind of slide you in a different path of that journey, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is still the same, right? It's our objective here is to take every one of our players and give them the best possible opportunity to reach whatever their potential is, whatever their ceiling is. And there's a certain recipe and strategy and best practices that are going to give you the best possible opportunity to pursue that. So just everyone's ceiling is a little bit different, right? And that's where it comes back down to what we discussed earlier. Success isn't necessarily the finish line to be crossed. It's what systems and best practices have you put in place that are going to give you the best possible opportunity to achieve your ceiling, your highest level of success. All right, so, trying to conclude here, I guess, can you share with the audience, where do you see yourself right now, I guess, in 5 years? I don't know if you've thought about that. Sometimes that's a question we ask during our interviews. But where do you see yourself in 5 years, as it pertains to your career?
Yeah, I mean, sure, I could go big picture, right? Director of golf somewhere, managing a club, something along those lines, right? What I've found for me that works best is trying to make the current day that you're in the best day that you can, right? There's so much stuff going on in this world to, think that far ahead. And not to say don't do any of that stuff, right? What I mean by that is, I wake up every day and try to make that day the best day of my life, right? Whether that's going to my job and trying to make our members and guests have the best possible experience at Butler, or, whether that's, trying to get better at golf, right? So big picture, sure, director of golf somewhere in 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. For now, it's wake up every day and put a smile on your face and, just try to make every day the best day of your own life.
No, that certainly tracks for me as well. And there's some parallels, right? It's no different than what we talked about earlier. When you're playing around the golf, what are we trying to do? We're trying to stay in the present, right? So yeah, I'm certainly can relate to that, and is something that I think a similar way I'm trying to approach life as well. Tommy and I obviously have our long-term goals here as far as what we're trying to achieve here from a business standpoint, but sometimes it's just easier and healthier to take one day at a time.
So besides us, is there anybody else you'd like to thank or kind of acknowledge for, kind of helping you along with your journey, or has been instrumental in helping you get where you're at right now?
There's a lot. I guess where do we start, right? Obviously my parents, right? My parents, my sisters, my brother-in-law caddied for me a bunch of times.
I got fired real quick.
You had something else going on that you were doing.
Okay.
No, my family, of course, they were supportive from the start and, did their best through some tough times for me. And I'll never be able to repay them for that. But I'm
You
super
still living with them?
grateful for No, I'm not. Definitely got to thank the lady. Molly's helped me out tremendously. She's just super supportive. She doesn't necessarily know much about golf, but she's trying. Played an IPGA event, I don't know, a month ago or so, and we had a rain delay and came back from the rain delay, and I was doing the live scoring on my phone, and they've got the live scoring in our family group chat, and she goes, he birdied the first hole back. He birdied the second hole. She didn't know what birdie was, right? Till maybe a month ago. But I think the best part about our relationship, right, is she doesn't care if I'm a good golfer, right? Whether I play well or bad, it doesn't matter. And she tells me that, right? And to me, it means everything, right? Aside from, people who are, close in my life, obviously, Rodney at Butler, he gave me the opportunity, right? He texted me randomly about a year and a half, 2 years after I started caddying at Butler and said, hey, we need somebody to work a couple days a week in the shop, right? Of course, my brain goes, oh, if I start working in the golf shop, that's going to take away from my practice time, And before I could even respond to him, he sends me a text and goes, keep in mind, this will really free up your practicing and playing privileges, right? So I call my dad, as I do when I'm making a bigger decision like that. And I told him that same story, and I remember him on the phone. There was a pause, and he goes, okay, so what's the question? Right? He's like, well, yeah, what are you doing? So, super grateful for him reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to have the facility at my use, right? And obviously help out in the shop, get to know the members a little bit more. But yeah, super grateful for that. Joe, the first assistant at Butler, I got to give him a shout out because, he's been Class A for a number of years now, worked at the Grove and a couple other places, but, he's helped me out a lot through the schoolwork and, in the winter, being my dummy 18 handicap, give him a lefty club, give him a lesson. But super grateful for that just because the schoolwork is, it can be tedious. So to have someone who's, relatively fresh with it and, around my age, a little bit younger, but he's been super great in, helping me navigate those waters and been super helpful for sure. Did I mention you guys?
I said besides, though, but thank you.
So maybe my final question. You made a decision that so many individuals are reluctant to make. They're scared to make for so many reasons, but ultimately made a decision to take a risk. And, Tommy and I think we 100% agree on this, and it's obvious through so many other success stories that, really, really hard to accomplish a lot or what you're capable of without risk being an ingredient in that.
Sure.
Okay.
In anything.
So you made the decision to leave, a job in which you were gainfully employed at. It was safe. It was secure to pursue your dream.
Yeah.
Okay. Not to say that you're not pursuing that anymore, but what advice can you share with our listeners for anyone that might be in a situation where they're considering or they have something that they're super passionate about, but they're not pursuing, they're taking the safe route? What advice would you have for them? What can you share with our listeners that you've learned along the way that, might impact them in some way or another?
Go for it. I mean, that's a straightforward answer, right? You certainly need to develop a plan and put a roadmap in place, right? But go for it. I think there's too many people who don't follow their passions because they are fine with being, safe and secure. And, some people are okay with that, right? But I think what I would say is put a plan in place, go for it, figure out your definition of success. What does it look like, right? Because if you're pursuing, something like, in my case, professional golf, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard. But what's even harder is when you're 45, 50 years old and you look back and you say, oh, what if I tried that? You'll always be wondering, right? So take a chance, take a risk. Obviously, you get the plan in place and you have to figure out the logistics of it. Whether that's doing laundry, fixing the TrackMans, mopping the floors. There's certain things that you'll have to do or might need to do to be able to pursue that dream. But from my personal experience, I couldn't live with that 45, 50-year-old mind saying, well, what if I did give it a try, right?
Cool. I love that.
So,
Well said. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think the key is ultimately, are you happy, right? And if you're not, you should probably try to figure out what would make you happy.
He looks pretty happy,
Yeah.
which makes me happy.
What do they say? Failure's hard, but not nearly as hard as regret,
Yeah.
right?
ain't that the truth?
Cool.
All right. Do we want to give them the opportunity, like we do at the end of every single episode, to share a tip with our audience?
I think he did. He just said, "Should go for it."
Yeah.
But yeah, you got a tip?
Have fun on the golf course. You know, it's like I mentioned in the podcast earlier. So many people put so much pressure on themselves, right? And we play the game because it's fun, right? Just because you make a bad hole doesn't mean just because you have a bad hole doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? So when you're out on the golf course, have fun, right? And believe it or not, you'll probably play better when you're having fun.
Cool. Well, let's get on the golf course
Oh.
sometime and have some fun.
And one
Oh,
more thing, get a membership at Smart Golf because that's how you'll get better.
Love that.
Never fails. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right.
Cheers,
well,
guys.
Yeah, cheers,
Sean,
guys.
can't thank you enough for your time, man, and sharing that story with us. It's an inspiration.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys very much.
A big thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Everything But the Tip podcast. Stay connected with us on all social media platforms by following @SmartGolfFitness. For additional episodes, updates, and exclusive content, check out our website at smartgolffitness.com. Don't forget to show some love, like, share, and subscribe to ensure you never miss out on the latest insights and engaging discussions. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep swinging and stay fit.